everybody, and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm your host, Stan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. 4 important races for 3-year-olds, 3 Kentucky Derby qualifying point races, split divisions of the Risen Star Stakes, as well as the El Camino Real Derby at Golden Gate Fields. DRF Handicappers Nicole Russo, Mike Beer, and I will take a look at those 3 races, as well as British Idiom, champion 2-year-old filly of 2019. Well, she's making her seasonal debut in the Rachel Alexandra, an important Kentucky Oaks prep. The Timeform US boys, Aragona, Milkowski, they've got their Spotlight and Pace Projector segments respectively, plus Saturday Best Bets. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate this week taking a look at the first division of the Risen Star Stakes. Important Kentucky Derby prep down at the fairgrounds. This one is carded as race number 12. $400,000 is the purse. They're going 1 1/8 this year in the Risen Star. Of course, there is an overflow field necessitating the 2 divisions. For expanded stakes previews of all the major races this weekend, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Our colleague Nicole Russo, she studies the pedigrees of these horses, and she's found one that really should like 1 1/8.
I think the first division is maybe the stronger of the 2 divisions of the Risen Star, and therefore the one where you're going to have the hardest time finding a price. In addition to Lecomte top 3 finishers, Enforceable, Silver State, and Mr. Monomoy, you also have Graded Scabbard in the mix here, and the pair stepping up to stakes company who will draw attention. In Blackberry Wine and Digital, they earned field best buyers of 94 and 92 when first and second in an allowance optional event on the Lecomte undercard. Now, that was the first try on fast dirt for Blackberry Wine, who previously won an off-the-turf event at 1 1/16 on a sloppy Churchill track. I don't think those performances were a fluke, as Blackberry Wine is bred for dirt, being by Preakness winner Oxbow, out of an AP Indy mare who is a sister to Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner Tempera. So those 2 might take some action and help you out on the tote board a wee bit, which is good because I still can't look past the obvious horse who is Enforceable. He is a winner at this demanding 1 1/8 distance with this maiden victory at Saratoga last summer. He then moved on to 3 straight graded stakes tries around 2 turns, finishing 3rd in the Grade 1 Breeders' Futurity, 4th in the Kentucky Jockey Club at Churchill, and finally breaking through with that win in the Lecomte on the Fairgrounds Derby Trail. Now, he was always expected to be a nice horse, being by classic sire Tappet, and he's now one of 4 graded winners out of his dam, Just Whistle Dixie. I like his class. I like his foundation. The farther should be the better for him. And while this seems like the deeper division of the 2 split divisions of the Risen Star, I just like him to keep moving forward here.
I think the 8 Enforceable is the horse to beat in this race. I respect that he's improving with racing. I respect that he's already been the 9 furlong successfully. But I wanted another horse in this race who I think is going to appreciate the 1 1/8 distance of this race, and that's the 10 Farmington Road, trained by Todd Pletcher. This is just a horse who I feel like is getting better with each start. Here's his maiden win last time out at Tampa Bay. This is his first start around 2 turns. He was able to keep closer to the pace this time. He's 1-5 in here, a race he's supposed to win. But I just thought this was another step in the right direction. He has this race taken over already. He's not going to win by a lot, but he was always going to win this race. And he just seems to me like that progressive 3-year-old who's going to appreciate added distance. And he's going to take, I think he can take another step forward in this race and be really tough at a very fair price for a Pletcher horse.
I'm hoping that Blackberry Wine's recent Beyer speed figure is a true indicator of his ability. He popped a 94 at the fairgrounds going 1 1/16, and he showed true grit in doing it. He showed good speed that day. He was passed by Digital in the stretch and looked like he was on his way to a 2nd place finish, but he roared right back to the inside and he won that race. We're going to go back to a race early in his career on the turf, and Joe Sharp has alternated running this horse on turf and on dirt. dirt, and he is just better on the main track. 84.94 Beyers in his last 2 races on dirt. Best Beyer on turf, 81. We see him running evenly here to finish 3rd in a maiden special weight. I think the distance is going to be okay by Preakness winner Oxbow out of an AP Indy mare. And he's got some pace to chase. To his inside is another Calumet farm-owned horse, Shasha Shake Me Up, who I think is going to make the front. I think Blackberry Wine's going to sit off him and try to get the jump turning into the stretch. I'm hoping that Fig is right because it looks a little bit like an outlier, but Blackberry Wine is my top selection in the first division of the Risen Star. The second division is coming up next. Let's throw up the field for the second division of the Grade 2 Risen Star Stakes at the Fairgrounds on Saturday. All important Kentucky Derby prep points on the line. This one, race number 13, $400,000 is the purse for expanded stakes previews of many of the major races all weekend long. Head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike the Horse to Beat's your morning line favorite. That's Ano Deor, just missed in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, just missed in the Los Alamitos Futurity. I think this is a really good spot for him to start his 3-year-old campaign, and maybe the blinkers will help him focus just a little better.
I'm not going to argue with this placement for him either. I think he's found himself in the weaker division here of the Risen Star, and he just looks like way the horse to beat in here. Obviously, if he runs either one of his 2 dirt starts to date, or even improves off of them, he's going to be a handful in here. We have a replay of his most recent start, the Grade 2 Los Al Futurity. There he is on the outside. He's going to come after the talented 1,000 Words on the lead right now. He's going to look this horse in the eye, Dan, but for the second time in a row on the main track, he cannot get by.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a combination of 1,000 Words, and we've talked about him in the past extensively on DRFTV. He just has a lot of guts and he wants to fight you, and maybe Ano Deor just lacks that right now. But I think with the blinkers on, he might be able, as I mentioned, focus a little bit better. He has shown a lot of ability. He's flying under the radar considering some of the big performances we've seen from this 3-year-old crop the last few weeks. This is a good spot for him. We're going to learn a lot about Ano Deor as he goes 1 1/8 in the Risen Star. Nicole Russo already is going with a horse that has run at 1 1/8. Let's see who she likes.
Well, on paper, Ano Deor stands out in the second division of the Risen Star with his 2 close graded placings, finishing second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile to Storm the Court, who has not come back to flatter him, and second in the Los Al Futurity to 1,000 Words, who has come back to validate that form. However, I just can't quite overlook that Ano Deor didn't quite have the killer instincts to get things done in those 2 races, and I can't overlook that his only win so far has come on the turf. I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach with him, and I question whether flashy stakes winner Liam's Lucky Charm wants to go this far, which makes this second division of the Risen Star more wide open for me. I'm going to take a swing here with Modernist, who improved markedly when he got to go long for Bill Mott. He's coming off this maiden win at Aqueduct, going this 1 1/8 distance. This colt is bred to keep relishing distance. He's by young classic sire Uncle Mo, out of a Bernardini mare who is a half-sister to Life is Sweet and Sweet Catamine. He'll have to take a step forward from a figures perspective, but I'm interested in his placement here for Mott, especially considering his experience at the distance. And if you, like me, think that the first division of the Risen Star is maybe a bit tougher, you also might want to use Finnick the Fierce underneath. He was a close second in the Kentucky Jockey Club, finishing ahead of both Tis the Law and Enforceable, and then finished 4th in the Lecomte behind Enforceable, Silver State, and Mr. Monomoy, all 3 of whom are drawn in the earlier division, so their performances could certainly flatter him in this spot.
I am not against Ano Deor in this race at a very short price, but I wanted a better price as far as win betting goes. I'm going to take a shot with the number 7, Major Fed. We don't have any replays to show you, but this horse debuted sprinting on a sloppy track. I thought he was green in that race, but he really finished with some interest to be 3rd to a very good horse on Gold Street. They stretched him out for his second start over this Fairgrounds main track. He is bred to go longer. He set a nice trip in that race, and I really liked the way that he finished in there. He came home the last 1/8 of a mile full of run. He went clear in the stretch. He goes for an underrated trainer in this race, and he's going to be a price.
I'm going with one of the stretch-out horses in this race. That's the 5, Liam's Lucky Charm, in from Tampa Bay Downs. I have to admit, I'm a little bit concerned about this 1.125 distance, but I know he can get forward in here, and I know he can run fast races, albeit sprinting. He's got a couple of 90-plus buyers on his page, including his most recent race at 7 furlongs at Tampa Bay. We'll watch that one right now, and he wanted to be on the lead this day, and he was on the lead, but they're surrounding him at the 3/16 pole, and he just gets away. And this makes me think that maybe, just maybe, he has enough ability to stretch out to 1.125. There are a lot of speed influences on the bottom of his pedigree, but his dam was able to win at 1.125, and I think this horse is going to get forward. The horse on the far outside, New York Traffic's going to show some speed, but I wouldn't hand the lead to that horse. He's going to have to earn it from the far outside post. I'm curious to see what we get from Liam's Lucky Charm, stretching out in distance to 1.125. He's my pick in the second division of the Risen Star. Craig Milkowski of Timeform US also looking at some major races at the fairgrounds on Saturday. Here's his pace projector segment for the Rachel Alexandra.
Hi, I'm Craig Milkowski at Timeform US for this week's edition of Out of the Gate. In my pace projector segment this week, I'm going to take a look at the Grade 2 Rachel Alexandra Stakes for 3-year-old fillies being run at the fairgrounds on Saturday as the 11th race. It's part of that Risen Star card, so exciting day. This in Oaks prep. We have a couple Derby preps later on the day. But the reason I opted to pick this one is because of that red flag you see in the upper right-hand corner of our preview page. We think there's enough speed signed onto this race that the pace is likely to be fast, and that is going to lead to the selection I'm going to give at the end. Part of why when you look at this preview page, you can see that we have 3 horses identified as leader or speed. Those are horses that definitely want to be up on the front end. 2 of those 3 are shown right near the front, the number 1 and 2 horse, His Story and Ursula. The 4 hasn't quite shown the raw speed to contend with those, but I would imagine he's certainly going to try to get up there early. You'll also note that the 1 horse adds blinkers, His Glory. We do factor that into the pace projector. She's shown a little bit more forwardly placed than she otherwise would be. Taking a closer look at that pace projector, you can see here we also identify that the 1 has adding blinkers just like we do on the preview page, and I've highlighted those leaders and speed horses. That said, I don't think any of those 3 horses are the true contenders in this race. I'm going to start by taking a look at a couple of the favorites in here and then go on to the horse that I like. The horse who is most likely going to be the favorite is your 2-year-old filly champion of 2019, the Eclipse Award winner, British Idiom. I really don't have any knocks at all on this filly. The one thing I will point out, she doesn't really have much of a speed figure edge on everybody else. She got just a 100 Timeform US speed figure when winning at juvenile fillies. What I do like about her is her versatility. You can see she broke her mating when winning a sprint from right up near the front end. Her second time out in the Alcibiades at Keeneland, she was able to sit close to a fairly quick pace and get the easy win with a real big move on the turn to kind of break the race open. And then last time out in that juvenile filly, she was much further back when the pace got really quick. You can note the increase in the pace figures from her prior 2 starts, and she handled it well. She was still able to rate off that pace. So again, no real knocks on her. I just don't think she's going to offer much value in here. I do think she is a contender, but she's not a horse I'm going to be betting. Another horse I won't be betting, who's likely to be the second choice, is Finite. I have her similar to British Idiom in the speed figure range. They've both been running low hundreds, high 90s. But she's a horse who I just haven't been as impressed with as some others that we're going to talk about. She got a really easy trip last time, tracking a slow pace. It wasn't slow enough that we have it highlighted in blue. You note the pace figures from the races, which is how I have my settings set. Show low 90s early, finishing with a 101. So she did finish, but I think with a hot pace and her style liking to be a little close up, it is going to make it a tougher race for her. She could adapt just as British Idiom did, but British Idiom was really the exception in there. Normally horses show this running style, they're going to stick to it. So I'm really curious to see how Finite runs while taking a shot against her. The horse I did ultimately land on comes out of that same race. It was a Silver Bullet Day Stakes that Finite won last time, and that's Tempers Rising. For the very reasons that I don't particularly care for Finite in here, or a lot of the reasons I do like Tempers Rising. She was able to sit off of that moderate pace last time. Again, it's not in blue. It wasn't a crazy slow pace, but it certainly wasn't very taxing on those at the front end. And she's just a filly I think is really moving in the right direction. She ran her best time form US speed figure last time out with a 99. I really liked how she was making up ground late despite that moderate pace, and I think she's the one that could very well get the job done in here. Most likely I will play her in an exacta box with British Idiom. Maybe that one will win. Just a bit of a saver bet, but I think she offers great value, and she's going to be my selection today in the Rachel Alexandra Stakes.
Master horse racing with the power of daily racing form. DRF has helped players win at the races for 125 years. Now the information you trust is better than ever. Get exclusive late-breaking news from our reporters at tracks across the country. Position yourself to win by adding buyer speed figures and the new DRF formulator to your handicapping arsenal. Go to DRF.com today. Use coupon code DRF2020 to get a free formulator card and start winning.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for the Kentucky Oaks Prep at the fairgrounds on Saturday. This is the Grade 2 $300,000 Rachel Alexandra Stakes. We're going a mile and a 16th. It's carded as race number 11. For expanded stakes previews of all the major races this weekend, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, the big story in this race is that the champ is back. British Idiom, 2-year-old filly champion of 2019, makes her seasonal debut for Brad Cox, and she's yet to take a wrong step.
I mean, she's really run well in all three of her races, a dual Grade 1 winner as a 2-year-old, including this race right here, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She wound up a little bit further off the pace maybe than many anticipated in this race, Dan, but she is dead game through the stretch. They are all tired here at the end, but British Idiom worked really hard for a long way in here. I gave her some extra credit just for getting it done.
And she beat two good ones in here as well. Donna Veloce and Bast, I think if they come back sound as 3-year-olds, are going to be among the tops of this division when all is said and done. British Idiom preceded this race with a very big performance in the Alcibiades, an explosive stretch kick. Brad Cox has him ready, usually off of layoffs. She is the one to beat. Nicole Russo is going to try to beat her, though, with a sharp horse in her own right.
The headline story of this race is, of course, the campaign kickoff for champion British Idiom, last seen remaining unbeaten with a game win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies after rolling by open legs in the Alcibiades at Keeneland. She's in a nice little work pattern for this to put some foundation back into her. Brad Cox sent out eventual champion Monomoy Girl to win both the Rachel Alexandra and the Ashland back at Keeneland before taking the Kentucky Oaks. It would be easy to see him following the same path with British Idiom, considering her affinity for the Kentucky track. However, the champion is running into what I think is a special filly here in Finite, who I did have third on my Eclipse Awards ballot behind multiple Grade 1 winners British Idiom and Bast, following a 2-year-old campaign in which she won on both dirt and turf, won a pair of stakes at Churchill Downs on both fast and sloppy tracks. She's versatile, she's fast, but has been able to relax and carry her speed as she showed in her Goldenrod win, and she's tough in a dogfight. She began this season with a win in the Silver Bullet Day at Fairgrounds, outgaming Ursula. British Idiom is by far the toughest opponent she's ever faced, but I believe in this filly quite a bit. If you're looking for an alternative or another horse to play with those top two, I don't think I would leave out Ursula, who has been second to a couple of nice fillies in Finite and Taraz. This may be a bit long for her, but she can carry her speed to hold on for a piece, as she showed last time out right here at Fairgrounds.
I expect British Idiom to be pretty tough to beat in this race, but she is off the layoff. Maybe there's a chance we could pull off a small upset in this race. I'm going to try to do it with the number 3 Swiss Skydiver, Kenny McPeak, bringing this horse out for her 4th career start, first time around 2 turns. She's got to stretch it out here, but maybe she can do it. She's run really well in all 3 of her races, I think, including this one. This is the Gasparilla Stakes down in Tampa going 7. She's on the outside here. She was a good 5 or 6 wide all the way around the turn in this race. You're going to see her loom down to mid-stretch here. Can't quite get to the leaders, but she never stops trying. I thought she ran really well in here, Dan. I really liked her debut. Her race 2 back at a 1-turn mile was another good effort. She doesn't get out of the gate very well. Going to have to break with the field this time. But if she can stretch out, even if she can't beat British Idiom, maybe she can get in there underneath at a price.
Like Mike, I'm not way against British Idiom, but as Mike says, she's coming off of a little bit of a layoff. Perhaps that's enough to try to beat her at a short price. I'm merely stabbing with the number 1, His Glory, in this race. His Glory, multiple stakes placed in her career. We'll go back to the Ellis Park debutante, where she finished a non-threatening 3rd, going 7 furlongs. She improved after this race when stretched out around 2 turns, 2nd in the Pocahontas at a big price. And I really liked her non-winners of One Other Than Win at Churchill Downs 3 starts back. She caught Slop 2 back in the Goldenrod. She does not like a wet track at all. Her last race is the tough race to get past because she did not run well at all. I think that she conceded the lead to Ursula. This time she draws inside Ursula. This time she gets blinkers. I want to give her one chance if she can make the lead from this inside post. I have a feeling they're not going to go after her too hard, and perhaps at a giant price. At the very least, she can pick up a piece of this. His Glory, my top pick. Hoping that the blinkers wake her up for trainer Tom Amos. Let's head out to Northern California. The El Camino Real Derby offers Kentucky Derby qualifying points and the potential for an automatic entry into the Preakness. Let's throw up the field for the feature race at Golden Gate Fields on Saturday. 10 Kentucky Derby qualifying points to the winner of the 9-furlong, $100,000 El Camino Real Derby, to be contested over the Tapeta surface is race number 7. For expanded stakes previews of all the major races all weekend long, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Our colleague Nicole Russo likes a gelding that has won on turf. Is stakes placed on synth? Is stakes placed on dirt? Let's hear the reasons.
The 2 big keys to this race are that it's on synthetic and it's at 1 1/8 miles. So I'm looking for horses with proven or implied ability to handle the surface and with a foundation to handle the distance. One of your first points in analyzing this race will be how you think short-priced Azul Coast, second last out to stablemate Authentic and the Sham, will perform here. The Super Saver Colt has some variety on the female side of his pedigree. Damn Sky Treasure is a graded winner on turf and is a half-sister to Surgical Strike, a graded winner on turf and a graded place stakes winner on synthetic. Azul Coast has also made both his starts at 1 mile. However, while I do think he can transfer his form over to the synthetic surface based on pedigree, I am looking for a horse with a bit more foundation. And I came up with 2 possible price horses who both compare well against Azul Coast's field best buyer of 77. I wound up having my eye caught by Sacred Rider, who has made 5 straight starts at 1 mile or longer, earning buyers of 75, 72, and 75 in his last 3 outings. The son of Lucky Pulpit broke his maiden on the turf at Golden Gate, placed in 2 starts on the synthetic track here, and you'll see him here, most recently finishing a strong second in the California Cup Derby, beaten just a neck going 1 1/16 miles on the dirt. Also exiting that race is Indian Peak, who was making his first start on dirt and finished 7th. He is an allowance optional winner going 1 mile in December at Golden Gate with a 76 buyer on the synthetic. Another one with a nice foundation, several starts at 1 mile and 1 1/16 miles under him, who I might use underneath Sacred Rider in this spot.
I'm going to bet the number 1 Indian Peak in this race. I like this horse getting out to 1 1/8 miles. To me, when I watch his races, he looks like a horse who is going to handle the added distance of this race. We'll see about that. His most recent start in the Cal Cup Derby, I'm just going to not hold it against him. I don't think he's a dirt horse. He just didn't fire in the stretch that day. But he broke his maiden going 1 mile on the turf. He finished strong that day. 2 back, he beat several of these horses in an allowance race going 1 mile on the synth, and he finished strong that day. We have the replay of that race we'll show you right now. He settled nicely off the pace. He came wide to the stretch. You're just going to see him fire down the outside, run right over the leaders here, and he is going to keep going through the final 1/8 of a mile here. I really like this effort from him, and to me it suggests that he will get the added distance of this race. In between those 2 wins, they ran him in the Gold Rush, and he only managed 4th, but he had an impossible wide trip that day. I like that he's drawn inside. He can save some ground early, and then he can try and fly late like he did in that race we just saw.
Maybe I'm falling into a trap going with the Baffert trained favorite, the number 9 Azul Coast, trying synthetic for the first time. I just really liked his debut at Los Alamitos. Sure, it was at Los Alamitos over a wet track, and he was the favorite and supposed to win, but he didn't have a very good trip. He was bumped at the start, checked on the first turn from the back of the pack, 6 wide on the backstretch, and they turn into the stretch, and he's in Northern California already. He's about 7 wide at the quarter pole, and he still has some work to do, and Azul Coast just handles this all in stride like a true professional, and he runs by these horses. Out of this race, Baffert ran him in the sham against his uncoupled stablemate Authentic, a horse that just has more early speed than Azul Coast, and in that relatively short field, Authentic controlled the pace. Azul Coast was really up against it, trying to come from the back of the pack, and I thought was game to finish second. This is a horse I think that's going to handle the 1 1/8 with his grinding style, and something tells me he might handle the synthetic as well. 2-1 is not a great price on Azul Coast, but I think he's got the most upside potential of any horse in this race. David Aragona of Timeform US spotlights a value play at Aqueduct on Saturday. Then stay with us. We've got our best bets for Saturday's racing coast to coast.
For this week's Timeform US Spotlight, I want to look at the 6th race at Aqueduct on Saturday. It's a $40,000 claimer going 6 furlongs on the dirt for the older colts and geldings and horses. And let's begin by taking a look at some of the main contenders in this race. I'll just go through the top 3 choices on the morning line in order, beginning with the morning line favorite, the number 4 Hawaiian Noises. This horse is likely to take quite a bit of money off his easy victory at the $50,000 claiming level last time, dropping down to the $40,000 level today. Don't let that fool you though, because this is actually a much tougher spot than he was in last time. And while he did earn an impressive 111 Timeform US speed figure for that victory, that's a speed figure that I want to see validated, because there were a couple of long shots that finished 2nd and 3rd in that race. His other main contender didn't really show up. And also, he just got an absolutely perfect trip going that 7 furlong distance. He laid back off the pace in the early going. Some speed went added on the front end. They backed up coming to the top of the stretch, and they just left the rail completely open for this horse to come on through. He saved all the ground, got through that wide opening at the top of the stretch, and just went on to an easy victory. He's going to face some more serious rivals this day, and he's going to take money because he's going out for Jason Service, whose horses always take money. I just think you want to find some better value in this field. The other horse that's likely to take quite a bit of money and perhaps challenge him for favoritism is the number 3 Life in Shambles, who's actually an ex-Jason Service horse. He was claimed away from that barn last time when he won by 5.5 lengths on January 20th at the $20,000 claiming level. He's moving up quite a bit in class off the claim for Mertkan Cantermasi. Now, this barn does do well off the claim, but it's always hard to claim from a high-level claiming barn like Jason Service. They're running this horse back in 4 weeks now, so it's not like they're running him back on the prior trainer's job. And also, he's moving way up in class to also face a tougher field. While he was impressive winning last time, that was a slow-paced race with an incident on the far turn, and he took advantage and was outside of all of that trouble. So I feel like that way might be a little bit dressed up and not quite as good as it seems. His prior form was really spotty. He's turned into an unreliable horse in his old age, so I'm looking elsewhere for my top picks. The number 6 Win With Pride got him as the close 3rd choice on the morning line, and it might seem like this horse has been off form since he returned from a lengthy layoff on New Year's Eve last December, but I think he's run deceptively well in both of his starts since returning from that break, because he was chasing a pretty quick pace in that return over a sloppy track in December. He again caught a sloppy track last time when he came back at the $32,000 level off the claim for Orlando Noda. He was drawn on the rail that day, and he really had to be used hard in the early going to secure that inside position inside of another speed horse. It looked like he was going to be totally empty at the top of the stretch, but he really battled back gamely in the late stages to secure 2nd place against Direct Order, who just kind of surprised him coming down the center of the track that day. Now he gets a rider switch to Luis Cardenas, an apprentice who's been riding very well, getting the weight off. That's why you see some of those Timeform US speed figures seem higher than some of the other horses in this field, because he's getting a bonus for the weight break that he's getting in this race. I think he's a major contender, but I prefer another horse in this race. Before I get to my top pick, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector, because I think it really highlights why a horse like the number 6 Win With Pride, and also my top pick of the number 7 Aristocratic, is going to be dangerous. You see in this pace projector that Aristocratic is shown on the front end, just ahead of Win With Pride, in a situation favoring horses on or near the lead, and that's just going to make Aristocratic really dangerous, because as we take a look at his past performances, he's a horse who, when he gets involved in fast contested paces, he's often vulnerable, but when he gets to control the pace himself on the front end, he's really tough to beat. beat. And we saw that be true 3 back on November 3rd when there was an honest pace that day. You see that second pace figure is actually color-coded red, but nobody was really challenging him for the lead. He got to set his pace on his own, up by a length or two for the entire race, and he just drew off to a really impressive 6-length victory that day with a 1:13 time form US speed figure. A repeat of that kind of performance is going to make him tough to beat here. Now, he lost his subsequent 2 starts, but he was just overmatched 2 back behind grade 1 winter complexity. He had no chance that day, going 7 furlongs, a distance that is probably too far for him anyway. And then last time he was at this level going the 6.5 furlong distance, and while he lost again as the favorite, that was a deceptively strong effort because the pace that day was really fast. You see those 2 color-coded, red color-coded time form US pace figures at the left. He was battling with another horse on the lead the entire way. He put away his main pace rival and just got swallowed up late by 2 closers, but I thought he really finished way ahead of the other speeds that day and battled on gamely to the wire. Now he's cutting back to his perfect distance of 6 furlongs in a situation without a lot of other speed. I'd imagine that Eric Consell is going to be aggressive and try to secure the front end with this horse. I just think that's going to make him really tough to beat. We'll see what kind of price he is. I've got him at 6-1 in the morning line. I'd frankly be happy with a price as low as 4-1 because I think he's that likely to win this race. So my pick in the 6th race at Aqueduct on Saturday is the number 7 Aristocratic. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Nicole Russo likes something at Gulfstream Park on Saturday.
There's also graded stakes action this weekend down at Gulfstream. And in a solid field for the Royal Delta, I think Golden Award might jump up again. She's coming off a graded win at Aqueduct in which she got a bit of relief after a season in which she tangled with some of the division's heavy hitters. She's coming off a brief freshening and does run well off a little break, as she showed in last year's season debut in which she won at Gulfstream. I just think she fits well in this spot and also gets Tyler Gaffalione aboard, who's riding very well at Gulfstream. It's an interesting field to be sure. The hard-hitting Cookie Dough is coming off a solid second in the Rampart here, in which she was flattered by the winner. And I'm intrigued by the very classy Coach Rocks making her first start for the Pletcher Barn. But the well-bred Golden Award seems to be finally hitting her best stride.
My best bet at Aqueduct is race number 4. It's a maiden special weight for New York bred 3-year-old fillies. They're going to go 7 furlongs on the main track. I like the 4 Sharp Star in here. She debuted at the end of December as a 2-year-old, and for a very good first out trainer, Horatio De Paz, but she just didn't really show a lot of early initiative in that race. She sort of got outrun early. We're going to pick up the replay here. She's coming very wide off the turn in this race, almost like she's not going to run at all, but she actually kicks in a little bit through the stretch here. It feels like she just might have needed this race. She's on her wrong lead the entire way, but she keeps gaining ground to the wire. I think this is a race that she really needed. I mentioned that De Paz has good numbers first out. He also has really good numbers with maidens making their second start. He can get these horses to improve. I think she will improve in this race, and she might actually be a fair price. It's sort of a wide open race.
I'm going to look for a price at Laurel on Saturday in the Grade 3 Run Happy Barbara Fritchie Stakes, race number 7. I'm going to try to do it with the number 5 Victim of Love. Just think she's going to trip out in here. There's not a ton of speed in this race. The 3 Blue-Eyed Girl can make the lead. Victim of Love, I think, can sit second, and she's just in excellent form right now, having won 2 of her last 3, including this race, the What a Summer at Laurel last time out, where she was up and on the pace with the 1 Hey Mama Luke, a 2-to-1 shot who you see floundering down towards the inside. Victim of Love runs away from that horse, and from here it's just basically how far, and it's almost 4 lengths with a career best 83 Beyer speed figure. I'm just hoping for a similar trip in here. It's obviously a tougher class of horse that she's going to be facing, but she's 8-1 on the morning line, and I think she's worth a value play for my best bet here this week on Out of the Gate. And we thank you for watching this week's edition of Out of the Gate and urge you to follow the latest DRFTV offerings on social media. Please follow on Twitter at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, please follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.